and welcome to this all-level Sadhana Yoga practice. Take a moment and just find yourself in a comfortable, supported place. You may find it helpful in this practice to have a blanket handy if you have, or any other props you may have at home. And that comfortable, supported place may be upright in a supported posture where you're sensing your head above your shoulders lining over your hips, and tailbone anchoring down. Or you might even begin this practice lying down. Just come as you are, honor what your needs are today, acknowledging that each day we are changing. The world around us is changing. Information is changing. There is uncertainty all around. And see if you can be at peace, content with that uncertainty. And perhaps in these practices, that is where we find that refuge. So in your comfortable, supported place, whether you're lying down or seated upright, I invite you to close your eyes or just settle your gaze in one spot, eyes unmoving. Drawing attention to your breath just as it is naturally moving in and out. Perhaps on each inhalation, inviting that inhale to be an opening, to open yourself to this experience. Each time you exhale, a closing on the past, the future. As we inhale, arriving into this present moment, honoring what is present. And as we exhale, a letting go of expectations of what we think needs to happen. Each time we inhale, an honoring of listening deeper to the wisdom of our bodies. As we exhale, letting go of the conditioning of what we think we need to be doing or feeling or looking like. Continue to draw attention deeper into the self as you watch the breath and its natural cycles. And perhaps using that sense of your breath in the body to scan your body, just observing what is present today. Perhaps acknowledging areas of tension or areas where you already feel open and free. As you continue to use the breath as a way to move the gaze inward to scan, also acknowledging what thoughts or emotions may be present inside, or just an overall sense of energetic awareness within you, around you. Again, taking this time to just honor what is present in the self. And start to deepen the breath, gradually allowing the lungs to become more filled, more stretched with that air as you pull the air into the lungs. Sensing the pause at the top, and as you exhale, let the breath leave the body. As you get to that emptying place of the breath, squeeze the abdominals, really wring out any excess air. And relax the abdominals so the breath can naturally flood back in. The belly can stretch, the chest. Just noticing where air flows following your own natural breath here, breathing in and breathing out. And as you breathe deeply in this way, perhaps connecting to your intention. What is the reason for this practice? First of all, start with the idea of gratitude and thanking yourself for setting aside this time, for showing up for yourself, as it takes effort to be here. And continuously reminding yourself to keep showing up, as perhaps throughout the practice your mind may start to wander or go to judgments or critical thought. Perhaps cultivating right now an intention that reminds you of the reason for why you do this. Acknowledging your own value and worth, that you are worthy of this time. And as we begin to move into this practice, be sure that you're moving in a way that honors and serves you. Know that nobody can tell you what you should be feeling or how your body should move. You are your best teacher. So learning to listen over time, learning to trust, and also as we move into this practice, it isn't really what we are doing that matters. It's the way in which we're doing. So grounding, anchoring yourself into that intention can be really valuable as a way to check in. Because it doesn't matter what we do, but how we approach the doing. Are we doing it with openness, acceptance, sincerity? Or are we doing it with a sense of force, rigidity, judgment? Invite in an intention that will move you closer to that sense of peace and contentment in the self. And then if you are in a seated upright posture, we're going to take a moment to lie ourselves down on our backs in a supine position on your mats. If you're already there, you can just stay there as you take a couple deep breaths. So on your backs, you might take a moment to just extend the legs long so that the legs are still about hip width distance. And you might play with flexing the toes toward your chest as you reach the heels away, and maybe even inhaling the arms up and overhead as high as they will reach. If it's not comfortable to have them framing your face, you can always bring them more closer to shoulder width height. You might play with reaching one heel away from the body more than the other as the other thigh bone moves in toward its hip socket, kind of hugging in as that opposite heel reaches away, and then alternating that. Just sensing how the pelvis kind of shifts here, teeter-totters. One edge of the top of the hip kind of reaches up toward the ribs as the other one reaches down, and vice versa as you alternate. And letting the back of the skull be heavy and rested, the back of the heart, the scapula be supported. And then letting the legs relax for a moment, maybe just from inside the hip sockets, start a right to left sort of internal, external rotation, windshield wiper the feet a little bit, but moving from inside those hips, letting that movement kind of ripple down to the legs. Maybe you just carry on this little sloshing motion up to the pelvis, letting it kind of slosh right to left and then into the shoulders, letting the head just kind of experience that ripple effect, nice and heavy. And maybe you roll out your ankles, just continue to alternate. Maybe you bend to your elbows and roll out those wrists. Maybe find some rocking, some stretching of the face, some scrunching in, opening wide. just think about these movements as a way of lubricating in the joint. So imagine yourself a earthworm kind of wriggling around, thinking about the body as its own landscape, and there are these rivers in the body, and anywhere you sense tension or stagnation is like a dam in a river, and you want to just move through that. And then all the movement in those places is helping to kind of take away piece by piece those blockages, those dams that we've built up through maybe tension or repetitive movements or strain. Good, and then allowing that to just settle for a moment and just sense that energy running through the rivers alive inside. And when you're ready, we're going to take your right knee, bring it in toward the chest. And maybe you're grabbing behind the back of the thigh. Maybe you're wrapping around the knee. Just trust where you need to hook on to that leg. And then you're just going to move the leg around. Just freely explore opening, closing, circling, pressing away, hugging in. Continue to find your natural breath. Maybe you take your left hand on the top of your left hip, that as is bone on a little knob there at the iliac crest. And you want to just kind of press down to sense evenness through the sacrum as you kind of rock the leg, and that will help to support your abdominals here too. Draw the navel center in. So you're supporting this movement with some effort there in your core. And then from here, you might take a moment to grab hold of that right knee with your left hand. Open your right arm out in line with the shoulder. Palm can face up. And then you might just pull that leg across your midline and just go where your body is willing. It might move all the way toward the floor on that left side, or it might be hovering. Maybe your gaze looks in the opposite direction. Wringing out that spine. Take a deep breath in. And on your next exhale, just soften everything toward the earth. Inhaling deeply. And on your next exhale, hug the belly button in. Roll yourself back toward your spine. And then move that right knee over to the right side of your rib cage here. And then maybe flexing into that right foot, grab hold of the calf, the ankle, the foot as you flex the foot like you're stamping it on the ceiling. And then you might just play with extending the leg a little bit and then bending the knee deeply so the knee works its way toward the earth. And then you might inhale, just a little pumping action of that knee. Exhale. Try to think about the shoulders rolling away from the ears, the scapula hugging in, so there's a little bit of a lift of your heart here. Maybe that left hand again finds its way on the top of your left hip. And again, just trust what your body tells you it needs for this time. And maybe the next time we find that leg extending, we can let go of it with that right hand. Maybe bring our arms up and overhead, out in their wingspan, or allow them to rest by your side, whatever you feel will support you. Maybe take a moment to roll out that right ankle. And we're going to flex through that right foot, the ankle, and you want to ground evenly into both hips. Sense the thigh bone both hugging in and the heel reaching away. And then draw the navel center in, and as slow as you can with all that hugging in, think about lengthening that right leg away as you lower it down. And as you lengthen away with the heel, you're also hugging in with that femur head inside the hip socket. The thigh muscles are squeezing. The knee is lifting. The calves are engaged. All the way until it finds the earth. And once it finds the earth, let everything melt for a moment. All that tension, all that effort, let it subside. Just take a nice deep breath in and a full breath out. And then we'll gently gather that left knee in toward the chest. And again, just start to move and explore like You're exploring the landscape inside that left hip socket and just being curious about, what sensations are present, what textures you might notice inside as you move that thigh bone around. And again, the right hand can come on top of the right hip to create a little more stability, to remind yourself to level the hips, to engage your core as you swim that left thigh around. And then from this place, you might grab hold of that left knee with the right hand, open up the left arm, and then draw that knee across your midline as far as it wants to go in this moment today. Go slow, honor. Take a nice deep breath in as we exhale. Just sense that deep exhale, that wringing out of the spine. Another breath here. And on your exhale, engage your abdominals to roll yourself back to your spine. And once more, we can play with bringing that left knee to the outside of the left rib cage, sort of working its way toward the armpit. And then you might also play with grabbing hold of the calf, the ankle, the foot as we flex the foot, stamping it toward the ceiling. And then you might play with that pumping, extending, and then bending a little deeper. Right hand might be resting on that right hip. Shoulders are hugging away from the ears, scapula moving in toward the spine. Nice deep breaths. Beautiful. And then we're going to stamp that foot on toward the ceiling again, extending the leg again. Arms can rest down by your side in a T overhead, whatever serves you. Maybe take a moment to just roll out that left ankle for a moment, that left foot. And then flex the foot and remember to think about that femur hugging in toward the hip socket, the heel reaching away, the navel center hollowing, the shoulders pressing away, the head and neck are relaxed here. And then we're going to breathe in. And as we breathe out, slowly, slowly, slowly lower the leg. You might keep breathing, finding your natural pace here. Lengthen to lower. Pull in to reach away. And then once that heel finds the floor, just take a moment and let everything dissolve for a moment. And then from here, we're going to bring both knees in toward the chest. And if it supports you, also lifting the head and the scapula, hugging yourself into a tight little ball. Scooping the belly in. Exhale. On your next inhale, you're going to open yourself up like you're a starfish, expanding from that central point and then radiating out through the limbs of your fingers and toes, opening yourself up into that starfish shape or that X. Reach all the way into those extremities, and as we exhale, let the navel center hug in and let the limbs slowly move their way back toward your midline, back into that little seed shape, hugging in nice and tight. Empty the breath all the way out. Hold into that emptiness. When you find yourself needing to inhale once more, open yourself up, radiating from that central point, from the belly, reaching through the limbs, stretching. Exhale, hug everything back in. Just do that another 2 times with your own breath. Inhaling back into that starfish. And as you exhale, just let the limbs soften back to the earth here. And you're going to bend your knees and then slowly gather the feet in so they're planted on the ground, the knees up toward the sky. And you might heel toe them in so they're about hip width distance, or you might keep them a little wider. Arms can remain in that nice open position. And you're just going to allow the knees to gently rock or windshield wiper right to left here. If you like, you can allow the gaze to look in the opposite direction, that the knees are falling, and sensing that ear melt toward the earth. Sensing the weight of the legs as they just fall with gravity on those exhales. We're going to allow the knees to roll over to that left side. And you can bring the knees so they stack, and then take your right arm and bring it over on top of your left. And from here, we're going to think about those right fingertips and then let them reach up over toward your head. Let them trace over the head, maybe keeping in contact with the floor all the way to open you up. So your heart is reaching toward the ceiling, your arms are in a nice wide wingspan. And then from that place, think about pressing down into the outside of the left leg. Push down into the floor as you open up the right knee toward the sky. Let it roll you over to that right side and allowing the left arm to close on top of the right. And try that on the other side. So tracing the left hand up and overhead, letting it circle in a big arch like a rainbow into that wingspan, and then opening the left limb of the leg and then letting the right follow a little bit behind, and then the right arm. And then just try that a few times. So finding that tracing, the scapula moves toward the earth, the right knee lifts, the left leg follows, and then the arm. And if you need to make little adjustments for your body to make this work, allow that to happen. Try to keep your head nice and heavy. The head just rolls on the floor, and you can take this quickly or slowly, whatever pace you're comfortable with. Next time we open ourselves up and find ourselves curled over on that right side, we'll pause there, pressing down into the left palm, using that to start to push your torso into an upright position. We'll take a moment, maybe if you have a blanket at home, we'll put that sort of on our mats as a support for our knees. We're going to come to all fours. You can always roll your mats a little bit to add some extra cushion there if you like. And then just planting those palms underneath the shoulders, spreading those fingers nice and wide, pressing into those finger pads, making sure we're softening into our elbows here. So if I bend, my elbows are bending in toward my midline versus kind of bending out laterally toward the outer edges of my mat. And then I'm thinking about pressing my shoulders away from my ears, hugging the scapula in, scooping the navel center. Either the toes can be tucked or untucked. Tops of the feet can be on the mat, up to you and what serves you best. And we'll just take some cat-cows to continue to lubricate and warm up that spine. So we're going to inhale, lift the head and tail, let the belly stretch, let the elbows bend deeply. And as we exhale, tucking the head, tucking the tail, scooping the belly. Inhaling, letting the belly stretch, letting the head and tail lift. Exhaling as we scoop the belly round the back of the heart. Let the head and tail drip toward the earth. Inhaling and just finding your own pace here. Deepening your breath. Finding any little micro movements that serve you, any little wags, any shifts, any rocks. from here, we're going to just open up the knees a little bit, send those hips back toward those heels. Maybe they reach all the way down. Maybe they're kind of floating as maybe we extend our arms out. Grounded to the finger pads, reach the heels of the palms up toward the sky so that the palms are tented, the wrists are reaching toward the front of the mat. Maybe we sink our sternum down in chin, or maybe the forehead also reaches toward the earth. Think about the wrists reaching away as the arm bones are drawing in. Next inhale brings you back up to all fours. We're just going to play with a little rocking of the pelvis, a little swing here, like a little swing set. Swinging right to left, dipping down toward the toes, arcing its way up toward the shoulders. Maybe that swing set, the momentum builds, you make some full circles here. In this place, I kind of sometimes like to imagine I am just scraping that batter bowl. So alternating the circles at will when it feels right, just kind of freely move here, playing with those swings, playing with those full circles, maybe allowing the movement to work its way up the spine, into the head. And then from here, we're going to bring those knees closer together and just let the hips fall to the left as we look over our right shoulder. Inhale as we bring hips back up, and then let them fall to the right as we look over our left shoulder. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhale through center and exhale. Beautiful. Inhale through center, and then we're just going to take a moment to sit back toward our heels. If that doesn't serve you, you can always come to more of a kneeling position here as well, or sit in with your butt on the ground, your legs extended. It doesn't matter. Just take a moment to sit, to bring yourself to an upright position, and just roll out those wrists for a moment. And just kind of let the fingers stretch wide, them close in, maybe make fists as you circle out the wrists. Maybe notice the movement working its way into the elbows, the shoulders. Again, maybe imagining yourself like that little bit of an earthworm here, wriggling around, clearing those rivers of any stagnant energy, unblocking with the movement, with the breath. And then from this place, we're going to shake out those arms, shake out those wrists a little bit. And we are going to move our way back to all fours. And if you find getting used to like putting weight on your palms and your wrists causes issues, you can always come up onto the finger pads. I find that really is a useful way. It also helps to strengthen the muscles in the forearms and the wrists and the thumbs, joints. Or you can also make fists or even come down onto your forearm. So there's lots of options that you can kind of play with if you're noticing a little bit of fatigue in those wrists or just tenderness there. So making sure you're in a supported place in all fours. We're going to ground into that left shin, extend your right leg, and then float the leg up toward the sky. And you're going to let it cross your midline over toward that left side. Look over your left shoulder, look back toward your right toes. And then move the leg back out, and then let it sweep out to the side, that right side. Maybe the knee bends here, or if you like, keep the leg extended. And then you're just going to play with that right leg like a gate, swinging closed, crossing your midline, and then swinging open. Maybe you're tracking your leg with your gaze, looking over the shoulders, toward the toes on each side as you breathe. Keeping a little suppleness in those elbows, making sure not to lock or shrug the shoulders toward the ears. We're engaged here. We're pressing the shoulders away. We're softening into the elbows. So we're engaging in those arm muscles and not relying on the joints taking all the weight. And then let's lower that right leg down. And then from here, just take a moment to send the hips back. Maybe bring them up and over toward that left side. So setting them a little bit to the side of your left heels. And then maybe you play with walking your hands over to the right, letting the head just fall into the pillow of the right arm. Take another deep breath. And then we'll bring ourselves back to center. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So the right shin is going to stabilize down toward the earth. The left leg is going to extend. And we're going to play with crossing the midline, looking over our right shoulder, and then swinging that left leg out to the side. And again, it may serve you to keep that left leg extended, both sides it swings, or maybe as it opens to the left, you might bend into the knee. If it doesn't serve you to keep that leg extended as it swings open there. Nice deep breaths wherever you are. Just feeling your own strength build here. That the heat and the hips and the legs, the strength of your arms, your abdominals supporting you here. The effort of this pose keeping you anchored to this present moment. There's a lot happening here. We're breathing, we're moving, we're sensing all different things. And we're being kind, remembering our intention. It's not what we do, it's the way in which we do the doing. So let's lower that left leg down. And again, maybe we're sitting our hips back toward that child's pose. Maybe we bring the hips over to the right side. And then also play with walking the hands over to the left. Letting the head relax wherever it wants to. Taking a few deep breaths. And just sensing yourself folding here. Sending breath to any areas of tightness inside. And then we'll gently bring ourselves back to center. Bring ourselves up to a nice kneeling position where our hips are raised above our heels, or lifted above. So our hips are above our knees essentially, but we're not sitting on our heels. And then our shoulders are above our hips. Our ears are nice and stacked above our shoulders. So just notice if we have a tendency to kind of push the chin forward. This happens over time as we get used to bad ergonomics of our couches and the cars we drive and things like that. The constant sitting on our desk writing, that can kind of overstretch the muscles of our neck. So let's bring the chin so it lines up with the notch of the throat, the ears in line with the shoulders. Imagine maybe a hand for a moment, and maybe bring your hands to the back of the skull, the occipital bone, and just give a gentle press into those palms. The elbows can widen. Take a nice deep breath in, and maybe sensing your palms kind of move up toward the crown, just giving a sense of tracking, of lengthening, and let the arms come down by your side. You can have your hands on your hips. If you find yourself not stable here, you can always bring your hands on the mat as a way to support this. But we're going to see if we can shift our weight over to that right shin to free up that left foot and bring it forward into a lunge. So if that doesn't serve you, you can always bring your hands to the right side of that left foot as we swing the left foot forward into that lunge. And then gradually, if we are able to today, bringing ourselves upright, maybe hands to those hips, squaring off the hips. We might just play here with a little bit of a gliding of the pelvis forward, and then a pushing into that left foot as we press the hips back, maybe working toward extending that left leg. Maybe it doesn't have to extend all the way. A little bit of a rock here. And I really like to have a support underneath my knee, as my knees are a little knobby. So that really helps me and my anatomy. So if it also something doesn't feel right, if there's like pain, add some cushion there for yourself. A pillow, find what will work. And sensing those inner thighs, really hug in here, just breathing. And the next time we come forward, let's stay there a moment, squaring the hips. Maybe hands press on the thigh, we lift our hearts. Maybe one arm rises or both. Maybe we weave those fingers together again and then support the back of the skull as we let the head and your gaze lift up. Let it fall back into that support. Take a nice deep breath in. And as we exhale, we'll slowly move out. Maybe hands come back down to the mat and the inside of that left foot so we can free up that left leg, bring it back to meet the right. Maybe we just walk the hands over to that left side so we can step your right leg forward. And then again, we might take a moment to square off, to bring our hands to the thigh, to our hips. You can always allow the hands to stay down on the ground as well if that is better for you today. But wherever you are, we're just going to think about lengthening the spine, scissoring the legs, squaring the hips. And then once you feel that stability, that hugging in, we'll just play with a little bit of that rocking, that gliding of the pelvis forward and back. Playing with bending into that right knee and then stamping into that right foot to work on extending that right leg. And breathing wherever you are, you can smile asana, lifting the corner edges of your mouth. And maybe the next time we find ourselves bending into that right knee, we'll just settle there, square, lift the heart wherever we find ourselves. Maybe again, hands press, hands lift, or support the back of the skull, and take a couple deep breaths. And just noticing the effort here just to stay upright. This is a balance effort here. And then when we're ready, let's bring our hands back down to the instep of that right foot, swing the right leg around. And then we can tuck our toes and start to lift our knees and walk our hands back toward our feet. Keep a nice bend in the legs. Maybe we open up our feet nice and wide here. And then bending the knees, we just let the torso fold, trying to keep a nice long extended lumbar spine. So if we need to bend the knees even deeper, and maybe just sense that little shift of weight, rocking the hips right to left. Maybe find some figure eights in those hips or just a gliding back and forth. And if it serves you to just relax the head down, let the weight of your head just support an opening in the cervical spine. And then from this place, finding your pelvis in the middle between your feet, pressing down into your feet. Start to lengthen through your spine, lifting the back of the skull, the back of the heart, bringing your hands to your thighs. Slowly, slowly press yourself all the way upright. First time we found ourselves standing upright in our practice today. So just take a moment and let that blood wash back down like rivers or waterfalls inside. Press down into your feet, energize. As you press down, sense energy rising up. Shoulders can shrug up toward the ears and then let them just relax with gravity and then roll them up, back, and down. Let the palms face open. On your next inhale, just allow the arms to reach up and overhead. Grab hold of your left wrist and reach and up over towards that right side. Inhale your way back up. Exhale, let the arms relax toward your side. And again, inhale, arms sweep wide. Grabbing hold of your right wrist this time as you stretch up and over to that right side. Inhale as we move ourselves back up, and exhale as we bring our arms back down by our side. And then we'll just step the feet in or heel toe them in, bringing them hip width distance. If you like, you can remove the blanket. You can remove any socks. You can take a sip of water, whatever it is you need in this moment. Just take a moment for yourself to check in. And then finding yourself into a standing upright position once you're ready. Feet planted, about hip width. Just those little bony knobs that we were kind of playing with earlier, that we were stabilizing the sacrum onto the ground. Find those and try to sense your ankles lining up right in the middle there. If we kind of use our hands there, we trace a line down. Our second and third toes also land kind of right in the middle. Or you can also play with finding it with when you walk, you kind of walk with that natural hip width distance. Unless you find that your clothing, your style changes, makes you have to walk like this. So it depends, actually. Nothing is like an absolute or black and white. So let's just find ourselves again standing, grounding into the ball mounds, the heels. Before I go into ramblings, let's rock toward the ball mounds. So imagine you can slide a piece of paper right underneath those heels. And then you might keep pouring weight down into your ball mounds, your toes, as you might start to lift the heels. So now you can perhaps fit an orange back there. And then slowly, slowly lower, like you're squeezing the juice out of that orange. And try to, as you lower down from the insides and outsides of the feet, nice and even. And then we're going to bend the knees, tracking them over the second and third toes, sending the hips back, maybe letting the arms raise to about shoulder width or higher if the body will allow, coming into that Utkatasana. So we're coming into that seated mountain. And as we come into that seated mountain, we want to be mindful not to sway the back or overly tuck the tail. You want to find those natural curves of your spine, lengthening. Maybe we can sit just a bit deeper, hug that Mula Bandha, which is the area the perineum is gathering in, that space between your rectum and sex organs. And also the Uddiyana Bandha navel center is plugging back and flying upward toward the heart. Inhaling and exhaling. Grounding down into those feet as we slowly extend those legs. And maybe perhaps once more we start to lift those heels. Arms can express themselves wherever that will serve you. Think about the front of the ribs drawing back, the tailbone rooting down, the shoulders kind of rolling back and down, the clavicles wide here. A smile asana. Inhaling and exhaling as you slowly lower down, squeezing that orange between those heels, grounding into that right leg for a moment here. And then maybe we just lift your left foot just a few inches. Maybe you play with bringing the knee up a little closer. Perhaps you stay here. Perhaps you play with a little bit of an opening and a closing of that leg. Maybe you play with extending the leg out, finding your balance, smiling. And then maybe we play with bending the knee and reaching for that left foot. And you might just pause here, sensing that left hip, opening the thigh, lengthening. And then we can release that left foot down. Maybe take a moment to just rock your weight a little bit right to left. Try the other side, rocking to that left side. Maybe again, we just play with hovering, lifting that leg, finding a steady drizdi, a focal point that will help you balance. Maybe you continue to lift that right thigh. Maybe this is enough. This might be our edge. Maybe you play with some movement, openings and closings, finding little gateways of the body, hinging. Maybe we play with that leg extending. And same thing like we did earlier on our spine, that hug in of the femur head into the thigh bone, that reach away with the heel. And then maybe we play with that stretch of the thigh, bending into that right knee, swinging the leg behind us of the shin so we can grab hold of the ankle and the back surface of our body, drawing the heel in. You can also use like a scarf at home or a strap to hook around that foot if the heel doesn't reach or doesn't come into your reach with your hand. And then we can relax that and let it go. And then we're gonna just open our feet nice and wide and just figure 8 the hips. Imagine the tailbone tracing a nice infinity symbol on the mat here. And allowing the arms to just kind of respond to that swiveling. And sensing how the feet kind of naturally roll from the inside to the outside. There's a little bit of a weight shift, a rocking. And again, thinking about movement is rivers in the body and clearing pathways. So see if you can even just close your eyes down and move in a way that just unblocks. Move in a way where you have to kind of breathe a little heavier to get things loose. Maybe you work your way into your head, your shoulders, your arms. Maybe we play with opening up into that starfish and then bringing everything in nice and small. And then again, opening and unfurling. And then bringing everything in and small. And then this time we'll open and unfurl, and then we're gonna move into our goddess. So toes point out, heels point in. You may have to adjust how far those feet are away from each other, but we're gonna bend those knees, making sure the knees are pressing open in line with those second and third toes. And maybe we'll just dance our torso. So letting it fall up and over, or reach up and over to the left side, to the right side, moving with your breath. Like you're a willow, just bending with the wind. Maybe we just take one more set here. Inhaling and exhaling, maybe just sink just a bit deeper. And then slowly, slowly extend without locking into the knees as we press down to grow tall. And then we'll pivot the toes in, the heels out. Take our time starting to hinge at the hips, bring the heart forward and down. Trying to keep your spine nice and extended for as long as you can. Maybe you have to bend the knees to accompany that extension of your spine. And then from here, we're gonna bring our hands to the earth. So bending your knees as much as your body asks you to, so you can get that service from the earth with your hands. And then we're gonna lower down one shin at a time. And we'll just sit to one side, bring your legs out in front. Just play with a little bit of a rock, like your sits bones are your new feet. Walking right to left on those sits bones. And then sensing them settle and anchor. And then just kind of roll out your ankles. Let the legs be a little more relaxed. Rotating internally and externally. Maybe even using your hands to help support that movement. And then maybe using the heels of your palms to massage into those kind of hip flexor area where the thigh bone meets your hip socket. Good. And then sitting up nice and tall. And from here you can choose to have the legs relax as they may be, or you can choose to internally rotate them or bring them back to parallel, and then extending through the legs, pressing down into the heels. That will support a lifting in the backs of the knees. And then you might move into a seated fold. This might already feel a little intense for you in this moment. So you're welcome to take it a little more relaxed. You're welcome to just sit upright and not hinge at all. If that already is servicing that sense of lengthening in the backs of the legs, honor where you are. Breathe. Sometimes it helps me, especially if I'm doing a more morning practice, to add a little bit of a rocking right to left. That helps me kind of move into that fold a little more gently. Wherever you find yourself folding or being upright, just take another 3 deep breaths. And choosing to lift through the back of the heart, engage that Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha as you bring yourself back upright. You might just have your hands behind you, soften into those elbows a little bit, roll the shoulders back, press into those palms, lift the sternum here. Legs might be extended and just relax. You might bring them in cross-legged. Take a nice deep breath in, just squeezing into the back of the heart, letting the clavicles widen, the sternum lift, the gaze might also look up. Maybe you need to stretch into your eyes and maybe just kind of like look up into the third eye or look down toward your nose a few times, look to the right, look to the left like those cat clocks. Just move the eyes in their sockets. Give the eyes a nice stretch. And then from here, we'll just bring ourselves back upright. And just, you want to be in a supported upright position. So whether that's sitting with legs extended, legs crossed, sitting in any other way. We're going to bring attention to our head and neck for a moment. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and imagine that the tip of your nose is a marker, any color of your choice. And the space in front of you is a whiteboard. And you're slowly, like you're tracing on top of a tiny pinhead, going to begin to trace that infinity symbol, which is that sideways 8. And each time you make that symbol, you're going to just incrementally allow it to become a little bit larger. You might notice a little pendulum-like swing. Gradually, the shape becomes larger and larger. So the movement also is growing in its range. Growing until you get to that point where you can't really explore bigger movements. You're as big as you can be with that infinity. So once you get that point, we're just going to reverse the direction, staying large, and then gradually, incrementally working back toward your center, back toward that place of tracing on the top of a tiny pinhead. Increment by increment, moving in closer. Maybe that the external movements become unseen, it's just internally sensed, that figure 8. And maybe it even becomes still with the body, but in the mind, you're continuing to trace that infinity, carving it out in space. As you sense your tailbone rooting down, the crown lengthening, the head and neck free of tension, the shoulders just rolling back and down, sensing that infinity. Continue to imagine tracing it smaller and smaller, like you're tracing it inside each atom. Sensing all that space that you've carved out from your movements today. That infinite amount of space that is outside of you, that is inside you, that ever expanding, ever stretching. And from this place, once more, gently do a scan, observing sensations inside the body, what is present. Observing any thoughts or feelings, the overall sense of energetic awareness inside or around you. Hold space for it all. And from this place, you might choose to bring yourself down to a supported position on your back for final relaxation. You might choose to have your legs extended or choosing a constructive rest. Or there might be any final movements that you feel like you need to explore in order to experience that quality of spaciousness inside. Honor what your body needs. Whether you're in movement or in stillness, wherever you are, give yourself permission, absolute permission, to be just as you are. To sense yourself supported and held in a safe space. No matter how you're moving or exploring a stiller place, allowing that sense of spaciousness in, that infinite amount of space. Everything is vibrating. When we look at the microcosm of electrons, no two electrons can touch, so nothing truly is ever touching. There's an infinite amount of space, no matter how small, between. Take a moment, just sense yourself as energy, as vibration. Letting that sense of yourself as energy and vibration dissolve any sense of density, any sense of rigid structures. Know that everything can move, everything can change, that there's an infinite amount of space, and an infinite amount of possibilities, of things possible. If you can imagine it, it can become. And wherever you are, just drawing a deep breath in. As you exhale, let out sort of a hum, an internal hum, a sing-song. All the way in to yourself. Satisfactory, like the cat that got its cream. Maybe try that again. Inhaling. And exhaling. Taking a moment wherever you are to go back to that idea of gratitude, that sense of gratitude, letting it cover you like a blanket, letting it fill from that deep, unlimited resource within you. Giving back to yourself. This practice is a practice of devotion, of giving back to the body, nourishing ourselves. So truly thanking yourself for this kindness, this devotion, this effort. For not just knowing that you're worthy of the time, but in your action, giving yourself that time. Whether you're in a supported lying down position or still moving through some things, find a moment of closure, of thanks whenever that moment reveals itself to you. Perhaps you need a little more time, or perhaps you are already ready to move on. But wherever you go, know that it is not what we do. That cannot define us. But notice the way in which we do. Can we do from a place of love, from unattachment? Can we do from a place of joy? No matter the doing, whether it's the same thing you do every day, the dishes pile up and they need to be washed again, or whether it's a new adventure, going into terrain that's never been explored before. Can you find joy in that? And become that alchemist, allowing yourself to turn any event into a spiritual practice, a magical moment of discovery. I'm wishing you a wonderful day, and wherever your day takes you, or if this is a end of the day practice, wherever your sleep journeys take you, namaste.